Hi, everyone. This is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is June 30th, 2023, and I am back in the saddle after a nice sojourn to Papua New Guinea, as well as a few family affairs. So, for some housekeeping, I want to thank everybody for their well wishes and condolences and just an outpouring of support for the recent death of my grandfather. As many of you know, I've been in the cryptocurrency space for 10 years. And while in the space, I started with four grandparents, and this was the last one to go. I've lost all four of them, three from neurodegenerative disorders, and my grandfather, Austin, he died of a lung ailment. He was in the Marine Corps growing up. Like many of his generation, he never complained and fought the wars they told him to fight and did whatever jobs came his way. So he, after leaving Marine demolitions in 1952, became a lineman in the cable business and worked his way up to become a researcher and eventually an executive. And I posted an interview today where he talked about his 50-year career throughout the cable business that started in the early 50s and ended in 1999. He had more than 100 patents, and the most prominent of which was actually a patent on the cable box. So he was a great innovator. And unfortunately, many of his generation, they picked up a lot of ailments along the way for the hard work that they did. In his case, silicosis and asbestosis. Uh, Being a lineman, crawling through lots of attics, he was exposed to asbestos. Being in the Marine Corps as well, he was exposed to a lot of things in demolitions, which unfortunately later in life caused a lot of damage to his lungs, which is why you'll see in the pictures in his 90s, he was on oxygen. Never smoked, never really had any vices, didn't even drink. He was a near perfect man. Raised five sons and two daughters, and we made sure he's a good practicing Catholic that to get his last rites. So we miss him. It wasn't unexpected. He was 93 and in poor health, but it was a great moment to take a step back and just reflect on life in general, and our personal place in things, the meaning of life, the friendships and associations we have. First, if you have parents or grandparents and they're still around, whenever you hear about news like this, it's a good opportunity to take some time out of your schedule and call them. Don't have to really talk about much, don't have to do much, don't have to actually see much. Just call them. Close friend of mine who works at IO, he told me that he used to call his dad every weekend, and all they'd really talk about is the weather. And he always say, "Dad, why do we only just talk about the weather?" And he told me not too long ago that he'd give anything just talk to his dad about the weather again. I have very fond memories growing up as a teenager. I used to go over and mow the lawn at my grandfather's place and sit down, and I'd talk with him about politics and life, and we'd just go through the world as a whole. And he was always getting in a fight about something. I didn't really like the way things were going. I didn't understand the world as it was because his generation was the don't complain and get it done generation. And he didn't really like when people complained and didn't get it done, like many people from the 50s and 40s. And he had probably the strongest work ethic I've ever seen of any person. There was never a time he wasn't working on something, even in his 90s. He was always keeping himself busy. He always wanted to build something. And like many people of his generation, everything was done with a pen and pencil, had a pocket protector always, always had the ruler, always had the slide rule, always had the compass, always drawn something on graph paper, always building something. I remember helping clean out his basement years ago and seeing a vacuum cleaner, and it surprised me to see a vacuum cleaner with a manual because his generation never threw anything away. And the instruction manual actually had detailed schematics on how to fix it. So I asked my grandfather, I said, Austin, I also call him Shorty, but I always called him Papa. I say, Papa, why do you have these schematics? He said, oh, we never bought anything unless we thought we could fix it. There was just a mentality that you have to repair and maintain and sustain. And his generation grew up with a lot of scarcity. In fact, in the basement, they also had the ration coupons from World War II. And you can Google it, Google World War II ration coupons and click images. You can actually see what these booklets look like. But to buy stuff, you needed more than just money. You actually needed the right coupons because things were scarce and everybody was involved in the war effort. So the Great Depression, growing up in a poor family in Michigan, and the war were certainly formative elements that created that scarcity throughout his whole life. And despite the fact that he started as a lineman, worked his way up, he retired a millionaire, which is truly impressive. And it just came from saving. He had 7 kids, and he was always able to take 20% of his paycheck, set it aside. Dean Witter at Sears, his wife, my grandmother, worked there, and they had a little investment place there. And so he came over and said, "You're my investment guy, and take care of the money, and I'll make sure to give you 20% every paycheck. We'll just make it work." And that's pretty impressive when you think about that. Single breadwinner and 7 kids, being able to, off of a blue collar job, work your way to that end. That was a very different America. And it's one that's sadly gone. And these relics of the past, they remind us of that. And we try to take the good and we try to improve on the bad. So I'll miss you. Anyway, looking to the future, many of you know that I spent 2 weeks in Papua New Guinea. This is I can't believe the internet's lack of prescience. So years ago, I started following Oumuamua and all the amazing progress that Avi Loeb was making out of Harvard. And I thought it was really cool that he was starting to put an expedition together. And once he announced that he was looking for funding, I called him up and said, "Avi, I'd love to work with you and find a way to get you the resources that you need to be able to go and recover it." Because when you look at the science, it was very clear to me that the object IM-1 that we potentially may have recovered, we're still verifying that at Berkeley and Harvard, is probably interstellar, meaning it's older than our solar system and it came from a very far away place, which is a truly impressive and extraordinary thing. And it would be the first interstellar object of that nature ever recovered. So I said, it'd be real cool to document it. And he said, "Well, if you fund it, Netflix will come." So Jason Cohn from Netflix actually traveled with us, and they're doing a 90-minute documentary on our quest to Papua New Guinea. So hopefully that comes out soon. These things, if you look at the ratings, usually have about 50 million people who watch. Avi Loeb was also on the Joe Rogan Experience. So, it's great to look for these things, but it's also great to get some exposure and be able to show a human element of curiosity. And I think it's great marketing and it's great visibility for who we are, what we're about, and our commitment to good science. What's strange in astrophysics, astronomers, is they tend to get stuck in loops. There was a recent paper that came out talking about the object that we recovered. And what was so extraordinary to me is the person who wrote it, and in Canada, apparently a big guy in meteor land. I don't know who the hell he is, but Mr. Brown is a big guy. And he said, well, obviously it can't be an iron. It's got to be stony, and the government data must be wrong. So there's no way they can find it. After we've discovered spherules, which is just extraordinary to me, to write a paper knowing that people are actually in the ocean at the moment looking for something and have published that they probably have recovered something, to not contact us and waiting to confirm or deny what we found. He said it can't be iron. We found iron. Okay. That's a really strange field. The don't believe your eyes and don't believe the physical objects in your hand, believe my model. The model is more important. And it just shows you the groupthink that forms in science. And the same thing happened in economics when we talk about deflationary monetary policy and full reserve. So if you go and talk to the Paul Krugmans about cryptocurrencies, they say they cannot work. Deflationary spiral, they will collapse. They're all scams because our model says so. We're now 13 years into this experiment, almost 14, and we're working. We're getting it done. Big ecosystem continues to grow. Yet somehow, some way, that's not an example of success, but rather just an example of a collective delusion that will collapse at any moment. Just waiting. As I'm wearing this hat, psychedelic scientist. It was a gift from John Vandergriff. He attended MAPS in Colorado. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend because I was in the middle of the ocean. But it's a big conference on the science of psychedelics, and there's a lot of great people studying that. What's extraordinary to me is they're publishing these groundbreaking papers showing that mushrooms and MDMA and ayahuasca and other things are not only useful in the treatment of things that typically we can't fix or cure, but they're transformative in that they cure them. So there are cases, for example, people who have been raped or tortured, people who have been victims of war, people who have had profound abuse, uh, people who have had terrible childhoods, who are on many drugs and are disabled, who go through a psychedelic assisted therapy. They come out the other side and they're a functional person. They no longer have panic attacks. The PTSD is gone. And that's evidence with your eyes. And yet, the modern psychiatry field says that can't be true and still seems to have a stigma about it. So it's very similar to what we're encountering right now in the astrophysics astronomy realm, where the model says you're wrong and therefore you're wrong. I've always lived in the science of the edges, the next generation, the pioneering stuff, the you can be wrong stuff. I don't like the safety of the shore. And I don't think anybody should like the safety of the shore. You don't make progress. You don't change the world. You don't go out there and make people inspired and get things done if you're too obsessed with having your feet touch the bottom of the pool. Greatness comes when you're willing to take a risk and be wrong. Avi asked me, he's like, why did you fund this when, we could find nothing? And I said, I fund it because we could find nothing. It's an uncertain thing. You got to roll the dice, and somebody has to be willing to take the risk. I thought that was the point of the NSF. I thought that was the point of scientific endowments. Why would we only fund things that are sure bets and safe? You learn nothing, you don't grow, you don't get anywhere. We have so many revolutions over the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of science that will be made available to all of us, from the large language model AI revolution to the synthetic biology revolution to the psychedelics revolution to the robotics revolution to the aerospace revolutions, the material science revolutions that are happening. And these things are not going to just transform a few things. The people who take the risks are going to transform everything. And it doesn't take a lot of them. Small group of people on an aluminum boat way out in the middle of the damn nowhere on the Pacific Ocean can go and find something that's 200 microns in size that crashed into the ocean years ago that maybe, just maybe, is artificial and from a different solar system. What would you do? How would your life change? How would your perception change if you found out tomorrow definitive proof that we're not alone in the universe and there exists other species, other races, other things in the world, in the universe, who are very different than us because they evolved on different planets? Suddenly, all of our particular differences that we have seem so small, because even though the skin color may be different and cultures may be different, they're still human, and those are aliens, right? So maybe, just maybe, that'll unify us. Maybe that'll just pull us together and make us realize that there are bigger, more important things in life, more existential things in life. This is what I talked about in the documentary, and a lot of the good people that were there, hell of a team. We had salty sea captains like Art Wright, 87 years old, fought in Vietnam, and he's a sailor through and through, and probably the best guy in the world to find stuff in the sea. He worked on secret government projects to find Russian nuclear subs, and he even found booster rockets. His white whale is looking for Amelia Earhart's plane. I think he even knows where it's at, exactly where it's at. He's an expert in side scan sonar. A guy like Jeff, a geologist who invented so many things, and Came along, turned out he's also a jiu-jitsu 7th Dan black belt, old guy. A lot of young people too, like, Ryan Weed, Air Force test pilot, who also has PhD in nuclear physics, and his expertise is in antimatter propulsion. I didn't even know that was a thing. One hell of a team, and I never met these people. And I got to spend 2 weeks with them, and they became shipmates. In fact, while we were there, many of you saw that I tweeted on Monday last week that the Ocean Gate sub, everybody was dead. And I got harshly criticized by a lot of people over Twitter as people were watching the countdown of the air running out. Well, I knew about Ocean Gate before it was even reported in the news because it had leaked to everybody in the submarine community. And it's a small, small community. Don Walsh and all these other guys is a very small community. Uh, they knew that the Navy had picked up the implosion signal. They understood the nature of the submarine, and they also understood how subs work. And they don't sink to the bottom; they float up. Deep sea submarines. So if you lose power, something happens in propulsion, and you're descending. You drop your weights and you float up. So they could have been somewhere in the sea, but there's no reality where they were stuck somewhere. So having found a signal, we all knew they were dead, and the Navy did too. But the Navy couldn't admit it because the SOSUS system is classified and they don't want to reveal capabilities. And it's a good training exercise for the Coast Guard. So they just kind of let it go through. But what was so horrifying to watch is that while a certain group of people were fully aware that these people had died instantly, that the media decided to turn it into a spectacle. Fox News and MSNBC and CNN, they literally had a countdown to people running out of air. I saw Lord of the Flies on Twitter where people were writing stories about and speculating, will the people in the sub kill each other to get extra air? Think about how fucked up and terrible that is when they were already all dead. Now, I have personal connection to the company in that I'd actually reached out to them a few months ago asking about the Titanic tours, and I have correspondence with the $250,000 in these things, and I thought it was too expensive, and also there was just some red flags in the correspondence, and so I kind of moved on, but I didn't realize that it was as bad as we all came to find out. There's great companies like Triton, and this company is certainly not a great one. So, it was kind of weird to be in that seafaring culture and know something for certain while everybody else is debating and just watch it from the outside dispassionately and just imagine how horrifying it was for the family members who were sitting on the sidelines, basically holding on to false hope that was being manufactured for ratings. And I think that's one of the worst things that could be done. You know, deep sea exploration is a tough deal. It's actually easier to land on the moon than it is to go to the bottom of Marianas Trench. Titanic, 380 atmospheres of pressure. If you lose hull integrity, you die 3 times. The air bubble compresses and gets hotter than the surface of the sun. You get mechanically crushed by the submarine, and then obviously the water. There's no way to live. Explosive implosion is a horrific thing, but it's quick. Human beings can't perceive more than 10 milliseconds, 15 milliseconds, sometimes a little less, but implosion usually happens within the 1 to 5. So before you're even aware that something's occurred, you're already dead. And that's the story that should have happened, but instead it was they're stuck on the bottom somewhere, 96 hours of air left. Even if you believe that, there was no means of getting a rescue recovery vehicle to the bottom of the Titanic in that time frame. So there was no reality where they could be saved. But we allowed a spectacle to push its way through. That's sad. And it's more of an indictment about us as people than it is about any particular incident. But anyway, on to more positive things. So, talking a little bit about Cardano and the ecosystem, things are looking really good. Voltaire page is out. We got a wonderful Voltaire at Essential Cardano and a nice little animation showing all the cool places that people have been. In fact, I got it right here. All the SIP 1694 workshops. The cynicism that has so permeated our society is, of course, permeating Twitter. And there's some people saying these things don't matter, but they do. And they matter so much. And I just want to take a moment to thank everybody who is participating. So, what's happening right now? Let me share my screen. Entire screen. Wow. Here we go. What's happening right now is that throughout the world, all these red pins indicate places that workshops are being held. So, for example, you click here, you zoom in. That's a California SIP 1694 workshop. Contact information, what people are doing there. Look down here, Latin America. Latam Cardano. They did 6 different countries, that group. Africa. Boop. Look at that. Wanda Global with Mercy. She did one in Ghana. And then we did one in Kenya over here. It's actually Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Kenya's a little bit over there. And then you look down here, South Africa, Johannesburg. Isn't that cool? And several in Asia. I did some in Japan. The Cardano Foundation was kind enough to actually do one right there in Zurich. Yeah, Zug, just outside of Zurich. That's super cool. So all of the feedback from these many different places is going to be aggregated together. We're all going to come together in Europe, and we're going to have a closing workshop to sort through all the community's commentary and come up with a draft final specification of 1694. And then the next step is to get a fully functional test net, and then for the people to vote. And if they vote for it, we'll fork it. And then Cardano has an official government. How about that? And so everybody can go and become a DREP, and they can actually start opening up the treasury. You can do whatever you want. You're running the whole show. It's going to be really cool. When we opened up staking, thousands of people came. So DREPs, thousands of people are going to come. And there's going to be some lively, crazy debates. And it's going to be really cool to watch all those happen and people talk about priorities and vote on SIPs and all these other things. So if you like SIP 50 and Michael's convinced you, vote on it. Bring it through. This is the point of SIP 1694, for people to be in charge and do all these cool things. So I'm insanely excited and fired up and ready to go about this. And it's just so cool to see all the progress. We got a wild, out of control U.S. government. It's going around. Everything's a security. If I find alien artifacts, and the first thing Gary's going to do is show up and say those alien spheroids are securities. It's like, okay, whatever. The Coinbase filed 177-page thing saying they're not. And it doesn't even make any sense why they would be. We've explained it. Everybody explains it. Who cares? The world moves on. The reality is that we're all working together and we're getting a lot of progress. Cardano is really maturing. Cardano node 8.11 is incredible. Plutus is really shaping up, especially with BLS support on Plutus. A lot of wonderful things happening on the sidechain side. A lot of really wonderful things happening with Hydra. It's so cool to watch all the moving pieces come together. And what's really important is every single step of the way, it's really become a giant open source collective. And there's a lot of amplification. And it just need to get resources and need to get good governance. And that's the point of things like an MBO and 1694 and these other institutions that are coming in. It's right sizing the government to respond to the fact that we have so many people now and things are moving, through many different gates. And we'll get there. It just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of patience. And, I just don't care anymore about the noise. If you zoom out and you focus on the signal, Cardano's TVL is up 148% this year, and it's growing. And you focus on the signal, we got Jed, we got Cody, we got World Mobile, we got amazing stuff happening with side chains. You got a ton of protocol upgrades occurring. You got a whole fucking government with millions of people who will not only be engaged, but very much activist, having debates every single day about how do we make Cardano better. Who else has that? Honestly, nobody has that. They look to leaders. They look to a strong man. They want some guy on the hilltop tell them this is what we're going to do. That's not sustainable. It doesn't get you anywhere. You need institutions, you need leadership from the many, not the few. And you need a collective group of tireless people to get things done. So we said, let's hold some workshops, 43 all around the world, from Africa and Ghana to Vietnam to Japan to Zug to all throughout Latin America to Philadelphia, where the US Constitution was written. How about that? And they came together not in 2 years, but in 2 months' notice. I'm pretty hyped about that. It's completely bottom up. That's Cardano. That's what we got. That's what we're custodians of together, collectively. And you know what? All those people are going to be activated because the people who ran those things are probably going to be the D-reps. And then you go to them, you tell them what you want, and they'll find a way to get it done. How about that? Thousands of people around the world working together to make this organism we built together pretty magical and exciting. Fired up. That's cool. Those are the good things in life. And please tell me how I run Cardano when I can go to Papua New Guinea and go look for fucking aliens for 2 weeks and all that stuff happens while I'm gone. Please do tell me. Yeah, come on. Yeah, must be there pushing the button, right? But bureaucrat's gonna bureaucrat, starting to believe this free pass thing a little bit, huh? Yeah, it's starting to feel that way. I got some sympathy for you XRP guys. Yeah, I'm being pushed into that corner. I really am. I don't know about that. A little cray cray. Anyway, so that's some of the stuff that's been going on. Been having a lot of fun, really enjoying life. And, you have some good, you have some bad, you have some loss, you have some gain. But net, it's good to be alive. And it's a good time to be alive. I've always stayed optimistic and positive, and I've always tried to emit a belief in the goodness of people. The problem is that nothing that we do in crypto land works if you believe that people are stupid and people are evil. If you believe in the goodness of people and you believe that people, when they come together, can do great things, cryptocurrencies not only work, they work better than any other institution mankind has ever thought of. If you believe people are fundamentally stupid and incapable of working together and all evil people, cryptocurrencies really don't work. It's a philosophical thing. And so I just come up every day and I tell you all the good stuff. And you have to make a personal choice of what type of life you want to live. You want to live with positive energy? You want to live where you look at life and you always are a cup half full person? Or do you want to be that toxic, negative person who's always just sitting there like, nobody wants to be around? Come on. Let's be good. Let's be positive. Let's look to the bright side of things. And the industry as a whole, our best days are ahead of us. We got Hydra, we got roll-ups, we got great side chains, we got amazing things coming in Africa. We didn't give up on anything. The other day, CoinDesk reached out to me and said, we heard from some insiders that the Ethiopia project has been canceled. I was like, that's news to me. I'd probably be the first to know. We're onboarding 1 million people this year. 5 million more, 5 million total next year, just going along. We are upgrading from Prism 1.4 to Prism 2.0. Maybe your source is talking about retiring Prism 1.4 to get them on 2.0. And it'd be real nice to find partners on the ground to build infrastructure on top of that, because all those kids, when they graduate, I'd love for them to get cryptocurrency wallets. I'd love for them to use their digital IDs for more than just academic records. Why? What's the point of that? Reach out, be like, can you comment on this? We're going to run a store. And then there was another store they ran. I was Papua New Guinea. And they send me this email about layoffs. I was like, I feel like that NFL coach, the playoffs. Like, layoffs? What's going on? Yeah, we cut divisions from time to time. It happens. It's not pleasant, but you do it because you make strategic changes. But actually the overall size of the organization is increasing. And we're going from one organization to a collection of them. Why? Because Midnight is going to be its own company. RealFi is going to be its own company. Our Wallet Leaves is its own company. It means you got CEOs who are hungry. They got equity. They're fired up. They're ready to go. They want to go do some stuff. They want to build some stuff. And then I can focus at the core at innovation and incubation. There's companies like Flagship, for example. They do this in the biotechnology business. They spin out like 5 companies, 10 companies a year. They make a boatload of money doing it. It's a lot of fun. You're always on the forefront of things, on the edge of things, right? So Cardano is an infrastructure company. They do nothing but protocol development. Very specialized people, focused leadership, agile, right? Why? Because we can be better. Just because we did something good, why can't we be better? Just because we delivered in 3 months, why can't we deliver in 2 months? Just because we were the top guys, why can't we break the record next year? Always be better, always push harder. That's structure. That organization, they don't really believe in that. That's why I didn't buy them. That they're overpriced. But I suspect somebody will bite that bullet and pull a WAPO and also love their financial decisions in life. So anyway, it's good to be back. It's good to be here in the driver's seat. It's good to see all you guys and be in the community. I'll start the AMAs back up, and hopefully we have a good press release. We're waiting on news from Berkeley and Harvard for the scanning electron microscopes and the laser ablation for the isotope analysis. We should know pretty soon the nature of the spherules and how old they are. We already know that they're definitely from space because they melted and formed spheres upon spheres upon spheres. So it's very standard pattern there. And you can see it in the SEM pictures that we have. So that's pretty cool. And it'd be really nifty to plan the next expedition, because the first step was to find evidence. The next step is to triangulate and actually find the big piece, which could be a ship. Who knows? Or it could be a watermelon-sized hunk of iron. That's what makes it fun. Bring some salty people together, do another expedition. How about that? Anyway, see you guys soon. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. Good weekend, good 4th of July. Uncle Claus wants you. Cheers.